Brendan Fraser is an unlucky actor, not because he often jumped without insurance on the set and ended up damaging his health. Many of Fraser's films are enjoyed by audiences around the world. The reviews of these films cannot be called bad. However, these films are doing very poorly at the box office. All this will eventually lead to Brendan not being called up for promising projects, and he'll have to do something low budget. Now there is a chance that Fraser may return to the ranks thanks to starring in a new Darren Aronofsky film. It was this director who once helped Mickey Rourke's comeback. Maybe Brendan will get lucky too. Fraser succeeded quite quickly, starting his career in '91. In 1992, the actor noted in two box office projects in major roles. They were Encino Man and School Ties. The film had a tiny budget, and no one really counted on it except director Robert Mandel. He recruited actors for his movie and promised them that they would all become famous after this film. The actor Matt Damon, who starred in the movie in one of the leading roles, often recalled this statement. Ben Affleck and Chris O'Donnell also starred in the film. Indeed, the careers of both Fraser and O'Donnell went uphill very quickly after the release of this film. Damon and Affleck would take off a little later, but if it wasn't for, had it not been this film in their portfolio, maybe no one would have read their script Good Will Hunting, and there wouldn't have been two Oscars. It's a little drama that's not a hit at the box office, but it earned its budget back, having made $14 million in American theaters. But the main thing is that the audience liked the film very much and the critics took a rather good view of it. With Encino Man, the situation was worse. Audiences and critics gave it a mediocre score. Actor Pauly Shore was awarded a Golden Raspberry for his great role in this picture. Fraser's role in this film was stolen from under Jim Carrey's nose. But the film grossed $40 million at the American box office on a budget of $7 million. Two successful films in 1 year did their job. The actor began to flood. Choice of roles. He was not always successful, and most of the movies in which he starred at the box office failed. Particularly hard-hitting was The Failure of the Scout in 1994. He got $1.5 million for his part in The Scout. That film famously became the first film to have an updated 20th Century Fox Studios screenplay. But still, in 1994, luck was on his side. Failed at the box office, the comedy Airheads instantly became a cult in America. Fraser got a role in this after the prolonged shooting of Bullets over Broadway. John Cusack dropped out of the film. He was accompanied by Steve Buscemi and Adam Sandler just from this film, who started his ascent to the heights of Hollywood. Fraser continued to be called for different films, and the critics did not like him very much now. After the failure of Mrs. Winterbourne, with honors and Fraser's career was threatened by The Passion of Darkly Noon, which was trashed by American critics. Two more failures, and the actor could have left to conquer some youth comedies. But in 1997, he starred in the most important film of his career, the comedy Disney George of the Jungle. If you look at the audience reviews, nobody really liked the movie, but he managed to do quite well at the box office, and Brendan was not criticized by the critics. On a budget of $55 million at the box office, the film grossed $175 million. But what makes George of the Jungle most important is not its gross. Fraser in this film really liked the director Stephen Sommers. He was getting ready to make a new movie called The Mummy. Sommers signed Brendan to his project just after the box office success of that film. Sommers himself says that he wanted an actor who would not look serious in his role. The director believes that the worst thing you can have in an adventure film is a too serious protagonist. There is a story associated with this point. In many places, you can read that the main role in the movie was offered to Leonardo DiCaprio just as all box office records were being updated by Titanic, and Leo really wanted to star in the film. Still, he had already been signed to participate in the movie The Beach. And even though Leo asked to delay his shooting a little bit so he had time to star in Mummy, he was turned down. The most interesting thing is that shooting The Beach was still postponed, but the main role in The Mummy was Brendan Fraser. While The Mummy was in pre-production, Fraser failed in another film, Blast from the Past, which eventually failed. The Mummy was a dark horse filmed by the director, who had just failed at the box office with Deep Rising. The lead role was played by Fraser. He had also failed with 2 of his 3 films. So the studio reduced the budget to the lowest possible value. Although the studio tried to control the process, it didn't hurt Summers. The original script of the film changed a lot during filming. The director came up with many scenes as he went along, and if the film had flopped, it would have been the end of his career. But that didn't happen. The Mummy was a big hit at the worldwide box office. On a budget of $80 million, the film grossed $416 million. Fraser's royalties jumped to $10 million. If The Mummy was one of the top hits of the year, the actor's next film, Dudley Do Right, was in the top 3 movies that brought the biggest losses. $70 million comedy in which the main role in the early stages of creation almost played Jim Carrey in theaters has earned only 9. At the end of the starting week, the movie could not even get into the top 10, which was a real disaster for a film with a budget. This film ended the career of Hugh Wilson, the director who had directed the first part of Police Academy. Immediately after, Dudley Do Right failed at the box office and was bedazzled for his role in this film. Fraser got $10 million. And the fact that the budget of the comedy increased to $50 million is not only to blame for Fraser's fee. The fact that Brendan Fraser also starred in the new installment of The Mummy at the same time as Bedazzled. Because he was available for 1 or 2 days a week, the crew had to follow Mummy worldwide, shooting scenes with the actor for their film. Bedazzled suffered a lot in post-production. Many episodes had to be cut from the tapes since they couldn't be shown in a theater with a teen classification, and the test screenings also forced other scenes to be modified. In America, Bedazzled grossed only $37 million. The rest of the world brought in another $52 million. They were not able to recoup the $50 million budget. This did not seem to be enough for Fraser. Before the second Mummy, another of his expensive films was released, Monkeybone. The road to the big screens was very long, and Nicolas Cage and Christopher Walken could play the leading roles at one point. They dropped out of the project and Fraser joined him, after which the script changed drastically. On a budget of $75 million, Monkeybone grossed $7 million in theaters. Audience reviews of the picture hint that nothing could save this movie. Again, if Fraser, thanks to Mummy, didn't immediately go on to conquer the small screens, then Bridget Fonda, who played the leading female role in the film, was less fortunate. Her career has plummeted. The Mummy Returns, which hit theaters in mid-2001, also did well at the box office but earned the studio less. Plus, the reviews from critics and audiences were not as high as in the first part. Most likely, this is why the studio did not immediately shoot the third part, and the studio tried to rely on The Scorpion King, but it performed rather modestly at the box office. After that, Mummy was forgotten for several years. Many people think that the second Mummy was almost buried by the studio itself. There was one condition to make the film in the shortest possible time. The computer-generated King of Scorpions in the movie's finale, which was strongly criticized for its horrible quality, turned out to be such because the studio premiered the film very early. The creators of the film did not have enough time to think about its design, and the special effects studio began to work on King Scorpion just a couple of weeks before the premiere of the film. It is believed that actor Brendan Fraser severely undermined his health on the set of this film. In all his movies, Brendan wanted to do most of the stunts themselves, which led to the fact that he, on the set of the second part of The Mummy, injured his spine. He had to have an operation for that, broke a couple of ribs and hurt both of his knees. He had a lot of surgeries after that because of the complications. The battle with being overweight started right there. For the second Mummy, the actor received the biggest career fee, $12.05 million. Although the film grossed a good box office, Fraser's career suffered seriously due to many other failures. He was offered either small films like The Quiet American or potential flops. The Quiet American, even with its small budget, It failed at the box office, as did Looney Tunes and Inkheart, which followed. Fraser's only relative success in the mid-noughties was Crash. But that film, but usually someone else, is singled out. Fraser could have had that legendary comeback at the end of the noughties. In 2008, two big movies starring him, Journey to the Center of the Earth and The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, arrived in cinemas. Both films did well at the box office. The creators of The Mummy had plans for a fourth film. Fraser and Maria Bello have already signed contracts. The role of the main antagonist in the fourth film was to be played by Antonio Banderas. But because of the very bad reviews from viewers and critics of the third film, the studio was afraid to start production. But in the second part of Journey to the Center of the Earth, Fraser may have starred, but the actor returned to the usual course of continuous failures. The studio Disney refused to participate Fraser in the sequel Journey to the Center of the Earth, which was replaced by Dwayne Johnson. It is believed that he was finally drowned by the failure of Furry Vengeance in 2010. After that, Brendan's career was in complete darkness. He went to conquer the films coming out directly on video. They all have very mediocre. Even in those, the actor often appeared in second and third roles. In the second half of the tens, Fraser seemed to pick up his mind and started appearing in various. The series is quite possible to watch, but still glimpse between them and in those most amazing movies about which few people know. In summary, we would like to wish Brendan success in the reanimation of his career. More so, it appears that he has such an opportunity thanks to the new project of Darren Aronofsky.